Welcome back, dear viewers, and you're still watching The Breakfast Show. And in this segment of our program, we will talk about the second edition of Egypt International Cooperation Forum, and it is taking place in Egypt these days with the participation of high-level representatives from global development and financial institutions. And to shed more light on this forum, we are joined over the phone by Mrs. Amira Said, a journalist. Good morning.
Good morning.
So can you tell us more about the importance of Egypt's keenness to unify messages and visions to mobilize efforts of the international community to support climate agenda in Africa?
Yeah, definitely the second edition of Egypt International Cooperation Forum and the meeting of the African ministers of finance, economy and environment is of paramount importance, especially as we are getting closer to COP27, and definitely the issue of climate finance will be given a top priority in this major event. And in this event, it's not just about Egypt, but it's also about Africa. So definitely this conference, in particular, when I'm talking about the International Cooperation Forum, will also highlight Africa's concerns and priorities in all issues related to environment, finance, and economy. In this event, there will be around 20 sessions, including panel discussions, round tables, and workshops. And also, it will include training workshops to share knowledge and experience and stimulate cooperation and South-South cooperation. So definitely, this event is a major event and is an important event in the run-up to COP27 due to be held in Sharm el-Sheikh this November. There will be in-depth discussions on ways to mobilize climate finance and how to ensure a just and green transition in line with the African Union Agenda 2063 and also the UN Agenda 23. And also all these international agendas, they also go in tandem with Egypt's Vision 2030. And definitely, this important event, which is being held under the auspices of the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, it also gives like extra boost to the green transformation in Africa, and also enhance the climate actions, and also mobilize the efforts towards climate finance. And definitely, when we are talking about climate finance, Egypt's vision in COP27 is to turn pledges into implementation. So definitely the previous pledges, like, for example, the 100 billion commitment by developed countries that should be delivered to developing countries to improve their climate action, will be discussed in this important forum, in addition to other aspects related to climate action.
Yes, Ms. Amira, can you tell us more about the issues that are expected to top the agenda of the forum?
Yeah, so there are major panel discussions, as I mentioned, and there will be workshops. For example, the major discussion, it will be held under the title From Pledges to Implementation, and how to translate the financial commitments to opportunities in Africa. There will also be other discussion about determining the climate agenda of African countries, how to reduce the cost of green and sustainable borrowing. Because when we are talking about climate finance, we have to take into consideration that Africa is the least contributor to global emissions. The emissions of Africa does not exceed 30%. So it's not unfair that the African countries economically bear the brunt of the impacts of climate change. So there will be discussions on creative way of climate finance that do not rely on just debts. There will be discussions on creative financial instruments to support climate action in Africa. We do not want more debts that add to the economic burdens of African countries. There should be more grants and creative ways of investment. So there will be also another session about investing in sustainable infrastructure for a just transition. So I think, as I told you, the issue of climate finance and highlighting Africa needs will be like the core of this forum, and I think there will be many fruitful outcomes out of this forum. One of the main also sessions, there will be a discussion to review Egypt's country platform, which is called NUFI, which is a nexus of water, food, and energy sectors. We know that climate change, it has a direct impact on all these sectors. We know we are talking about food, we are talking about water, and also in Africa, we are suffering from power shortage. So this major panel discussion, it will discuss how to enhance development finance and also investment opportunities in these vital sectors.
Yes, also, Amira, can you tell us more about the role of the private sector in development and how it can move forward towards achieving food security for the countries of the continent?
Yeah, definitely. Egypt's vision in COP27 is to engage all key stakeholders in climate action, and definitely the vital role by the private sector cannot be overlooked. Egypt seeks to have more smart partnerships between the private and public sector. There have been several calls to attract more investments from the private sector to enhance the climate action in Africa. And that's why when we are talking about this forum, there will be a two-day workshops in partnership with the Climate Investment Fund regarding enhancing private sector engagement in adaptation and South-South learning. And actually, the forum is held in the presence of many financial senior officials in the governments of Uganda, Zambia, Niger, and many other African countries. So it's very important to highlight the needs of African countries and also the role of that the private sector can play in this file. Yeah.
Yes, Amira, also if we talk about how important are the Egyptian preparations for the upcoming climate summit and what are the most important projects being implemented that are closely related to climate action?
Yes, so Egypt's presidency of COP27 actually it reflects the we can say appreciation of Egypt's vital role in areas related to environment and climate action. Regarding the preparations of COP27, many events have been held in the run-up to COP27, whether on regional or international level. We have to take into consideration that the main vision of COP27 presidency is to turn pledges into a real action on the real ground. And actually, Egypt also is seeking to, we can say, integrate the regional dimension in the climate action. That's why the climate champion, the Egyptian climate champion, Dr. Mahmoud Muhyi, in cooperation with the United Nations, for example, they launched 5 regional roundtables in order to reach bankable projects. So when we are talking about investing in climate action and engaging private sector, there should be also a clear bankable projects that should be on table. So these roundtables, the first roundtable took place in Addis earlier in August, and the second one was held in Bangkok. The third one was held in Santiago, and the remaining, there are 2 more roundtables that will be held in the Middle East and Europe. And by the end of these 5 regional roundtables, a number of projects will be presented in COP27. This is regarding Egypt's vision to include the regional dimension. On local level, also Egypt is seeking to localize the climate action, and that's why the Egyptian government has launched the National Initiative for Smart and Green Projects. And actually, this major initiative that was launched by the Egyptian government under the chairmanship of Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli seeks to support the local projects nationwide. It targets all Egyptian governments. And by the end also of this initiative, a number of projects, particularly 18 projects, will be selected to be presented also in COP27. So, as I told you, Egypt seeks to enhance climate action on regional and local levels. Also, in Sharm el-Sheikh now we have seen many preparations regarding the infrastructure, the logistics, and there are there is close coordination between the ministries concerned. For example, the Environment Ministry, the Tourism Ministry, and other ministries to turn Sharm el-Sheikh into a green city ahead of COP27, and many actions are being are taking place on real ground, such as using green transportation. There will be also many activities within the framework of COP27. Recently, for example, we have seen a green marathon by the Environment Ministry in the national in Egypt's protectorate. That's why Egypt is taking many important steps on real ground and enhancing cooperation between all ministries in order to make this important event successful.
Yes, Ms. Amira, also, how can African countries transform green and formulate projects to adapt to climate changes in light of their weak capabilities and, of course, with the support of Egypt?
Yeah, as I told you, though Africa is the most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, it is the least equipped to cope up with the severe impacts of climate change. Africa does not contribute greatly to the global emission. Its contribution does not exceed 3%. So, meanwhile, it is we can say it is greatly impacted by the impacts of climate change. And also we have to take into consideration, in addition to the impacts of climate change, there are many other repercussions of geopolitical changes, COVID-19 repercussions. So really Africa is bearing the brunt of the impacts of climate change and also the recent global challenges. And when we are talking about the green transformation of in African countries, we have to take into consideration there are major 5 priorities in climate action and green transition. The first one is mitigation, adaptation. The second one is adaptation. The third one is the damage and loss, and also the climate finance. So we have to take into consideration all these areas before discussing the mechanisms of green transition in Africa. Definitely, when we are talking about green transition, we are also talking about just and fair transition, and this also will be one of the key topics that will be discussed in this forum in issues related to climate finance. There will be discussions on how to fund this green transition, how to find more innovative financial instruments that are not debt-based. As I told you, that they add to the economic burdens of the African countries. So there should be more engagement from the private sector. There should be a genuine will to meet the previous commitments and also to inject more funds for the African countries to be able to implement their green projects and also green agenda. So bringing together senior officials, senior officials from the governments of Africa, and also senior officials from financial institutions. When we are talking about the engagement of IFIs or international financial institutions, there should be more dialogue between the governments and also these institutions to reach, we can say, viable and practical solutions. We can say that how to measure the success of this forum and the upcoming COP27 is by turning the previous commitments to real action. We do not want more, or Africa doesn't want more commitments or pledges. Africa now needs implementation, and this is the main vision of Egypt's COP27 presidency, or also this forum in the new capital.
Yes, one final question, Mrs. Amira. What is the significance of this forum in pushing efforts of the international community to move from the stage of pledges to the stage of implementation?
Yeah, definitely. When we are talking about climate change, we are not just talking about Africa or Europe or Asia. No, we are talking about global challenge. So it's very important to drive a collective action towards this important issue. And now the climate change is also is not being discussed as just an environmental challenge or a technical issue. It is now a developmental issue, and that's why we are seeing a great momentum in this file, especially with especially that COP27 will be held in Africa. So it's very important to bring together all these stakeholders. We will, as I told you, we will find representatives of the government, public sector, private sector, and different financial institutions. So it's very important to bring all these stakeholders to share knowledge, to share experience in order to reach more practical solutions. And as I told you, Egypt also is not just seeking the success of COP27, but also how to keep this momentum even beyond the COP27. Now, the impacts of climate change, they are increasing rapidly. So it's very important to ensure the sustainability of the climate action. When we are talking about climate action, we are not just talking about environment, but we are dealing with this file within the framework of the Sustainable Development Goals. So I think this forum is a very important step in the run-up to COP27. As I told you, the climate finance is a top priority for COP27. So this important forum, it helps to enhance dialogue and reach more clear vision ahead of COP27.
Yes, I'd like to thank you, Ms. Amira Saeed, journalist. Thank you for being with us, and give viewers a short break. We'll be back with our second segment in the breakfast show, so stay tuned.